So today I'm talking a little bit about a report that was published, that was released a couple of weeks ago. I attended the release on the 28th of June of the All-Party Parliamentary Group on Entrepreneurship's report on entrepreneurship education, which I have a copy of here with me. This was the result of years of research sponsored by FinCap, as well as the Entrepreneurs Network, which is a think tank that works around these issues, trying to push the government in England specifically to update and sort of revise the strategy around enterprise and entrepreneurship education. Some of the things they touch upon are the fact that globally young people today are far more likely to start businesses than older counterparts. However, having said that, the kind of strategy we have in England is currently sort of lagging behind a lot of other European countries. I think England as a region is one of the few places in Europe that doesn't have a specific strategy for entrepreneurship and enterprise education in schools. The strategy comes in slightly later. And what this report does, it starts building advocacy for policies targeting entrepreneurship education, not as a specific element of the curriculum in schools, but as a sort of transversal skill that is taught across curricula from primary schools onwards. The part of the issues here is that in England we used to have some support for this that was done under the Start-In program that was linked to the Erasmus Plus program. Now that is no more because of leaving the European Union. So currently there is no real leadership in this field. And this is again what this report tries to sort of recommend and tries to sort of push. Some statistics. We know that students in schools who are assigned an experienced mentor, someone who has an entrepreneurship background, are 50% more likely to start a business or to join a startup. And as we know, this is self-employment, and sort of the starting up of small businesses is preferable to a more traditional corporate career for younger people. So again, what these groups are doing is they're trying to push policy that supports this kind of education within the curricula. Currently in England, entrepreneurship education is usually not a part of the curricula. It's usually provided as an additional sort of course in some schools, but only very limited, and there's no centralized coordination of this. And one of the reasons for this, and one of the things that is touched upon in this report, is because there's currently no real ownership in government. It's sort of spread between BASE and the Department for Education, and there is no clear role as to who should be leading on this. Some of the recommendations contained in this report include things like the fact that the government needs to, first of all, decide who's going to lead on the strategy, then come up with a strategy that should then be implemented not just at the central level, but to include things like LEPs and other sort of local authorities that have control over this, as well as interfacing with independent schools as well as public schools to sort of have this transversally deployed across the education system. There's also an element around building role models and how can we take the amazing entrepreneurial talent that exists in this country and bring it back to inspire the next generation of young entrepreneurs and of students. The other interesting thing that is touched upon in the report that I believe in quite strongly is the fact that entrepreneurship skills are not just limited to building a business. You can teach someone to think entrepreneurially and to think with sort of that slightly more commercial and self-starting mindset, regardless of the subject they're studying. So a large part of the advocacy here is to start teaching entrepreneurship skills in as part of curricula as varied as the history curriculum, the geography curriculum, English, even arts, and obviously sciences to some extent. But trying to focus on the kind of skills that make an entrepreneur unique, this idea of being self-motivated, this idea of following one's own idea, this idea of wanting to be your own boss to some extent. And that element is really important to build those transversal skills that can then be deployed regardless of the subject that one ends up working in. The other interesting recommendation from this report is around training of staff. A lot of teachers in schools have never received training around entrepreneurship education. And that also shows at a higher level in universities. Here at Oxentia, we work a lot with with HEIs, higher education institutions, and we know that it's not just the researchers from a sort of commercialization of research perspective that lack that entrepreneurial skill set. It's also those who teach at an undergraduate level. And similarly to what's happening in schools, that means that you don't have this development of these sort of transversal skills that are very transferable regardless of subjects. So again, a strong recommendation from this report is that the government looks at training programs for teachers such that they can then sort of pass on the skills and knowledge of entrepreneurship education to students at all levels. So as Oxentia, we've been supporting entrepreneurs, we've been supporting entrepreneurship education for a number of years globally. We delivered large-scale training programs for entrepreneurship educators, especially in Latin America, and also we've obviously been working with a lot of entrepreneurs directly. One of the things we're looking to do more of is supporting, once again, the development of enterprise skills in education. As part of this, we'll be in Swansea between the 7th and the 9th of September, where we will be running some workshops presenting some of the findings from our international entrepreneurship educators training programs and how they are relevant to things that we would like to see more of in this country, as well as sort of building the key learnings from those programs alongside what we've learned from the things like this report, with a view of trying to develop an offering for enterprise education training in this country.